The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello there and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbit, and this week I am all by myself here in studio. No guest host. Nobody flew in from across the country to join me this week. So it's just you and I talking about a bunch of movies. We have a bunch of films to talk about. And if you're wondering what this is all about, if you know me, if you've watched the show for a while, you know what's happening here. You know why I look different. But this week I have 4 films I want to talk to you about. Some of them pretty exciting. The first one I'm going to get started with is what we have on the marquee. It is the big movie at the box office this week. It is DC's Black Adam from director Jaume Collet-Serra. Stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Black Adam. This is the new film that is set to jumpstart a hoped rebirth, I guess, in the DC cinematic universe. A bit of a passion project for Dwayne Johnson. He's been working on this for about 10 years now, trying to get it off the ground. Black Adam is as a character, is a bit of a tweener, villainous to some, anti-hero to others, and immensely powerful to all. This film sets out to introduce us to Black Adam and the mythology of his character, and it begins with a voiceover telling us about the land of Kahndaq, where slaves were forced to dig by hand for the precious Eternium. That's right. When one boy finds it, he is able to use it to access the immense powers granted by saying the word Shazam. Sound familiar? Well, you're absolutely right. Only with this, it creates a dark, ominous, unsmiling champion who halts the reign of the nefarious Octon, and this man is Black Adam, of course. Cut to the modern day, where Kahndaq is under the rule of something called Intergang. An archaeologist named Adriana Tomez, who is played by Sarah Sahi, she's trying to find the crown of Sabak, which grants its wearer great powers. Of course, she's not the only one looking for it. When she's besieged by Intergang thugs who are also looking for it, she uses the crown to call on Black Adam, who quickly and easily dispatches dozens of these guys. It's in our first attempt to really connect this to previous films. We also see Viola Davis's character of Amanda Waller from the Suicide Squad, who calls on the Justice Society, a group of heroes that your Grampy might remember. It's their job to control him and stop the carnage because he's a bad guy, of course. The remainder of the film is a series of battles between Black Adam and the Justice Society, specifically Hawkman, usually. There's also a character named Atom Smasher, and there's some random thugs, but Black Adam is mostly beating up with Hawkman and these random thugs that show up. And the movie is kind of Black Adam and a really bland bad guy with similar powers who is there to turn Black Adam from a heel into a face, I guess. And it's The Rock as an all-powerful superhero. Some might say, what took so long to get The Rock into the role of a superhero? Well, good question. But this film is filled with a lot of action sequences, but the story I felt wasn't particularly interesting. I kind of struggled with my interest in this rather tired old superhero story. Is it interesting to spend 90 minutes watching a hero who can't possibly be stopped? Because it's shown right away. There's no stopping this guy when he's the villain, hero, whatever you want to call him. He shows no remorse, and then at the end we try and jam a personal story into the last 25 minutes to kind of humanize him. But mostly it's The Rock just beating up jabronis for most of this movie, except for Hawkman, who's played by Aldous Hodge. Seems like he's not the brightest character because he keeps getting his butt kicked by Black Adam and keeps coming back for more. Dr. Fate is in this movie, though, a character that I enjoy, played by Pierce Brosnan. He's really well done, I thought, even if we've seen a lot of this character's representation by another Doctor over in Marvel. Similar tricks, but I really enjoyed him. I like Pierce Brosnan. I really like the Dr. Fate character. The thing that frustrated me with this movie, and there's a few things that frustrate me. One of them is you have The Rock in this movie, and he was allowed very little charisma to escape out onto the screen. Some of the Justice Society characters are just wallpaper, just kind of background noise. And Dwayne is supposed to be representing Egypt's greatest champion, but he has zero accent. He just comes out speaking in a very monotone, serious voice, and like I said, not getting a lot of his charisma onto the screen. The other thing is, for a superhero movie, and this is something that DC has struggled with, so much slow motion in this movie that it's almost nauseating. Every punch, every movement in super extreme slow-mo, and it felt like a movie that was beholden to the bygone era of Zack Snyder superhero films. And it felt like this filmmaker, who I think is a strong filmmaker, really being beholden to the Snyder style of filmmaking. And that's a huge miscalculation, I think, because allowing an incredibly flawed filmmaker in Zack Snyder to continue to cast a shadow over something that hasn't worked, and you're rebooting or reconfiguring of this DC universe, really was questionable to me. There's also some pretty hilarious CGI in this movie. At one point, they try to make The Rock look like a frail old man. That's just not going to work. That big head on a frail old body doesn't work. But with DC films, they never want to take the time to sit and explain a character or why you should care about that character at the beginning of the movie. They like to just jump in and hope that you care along the way. And they attempt near the end of this film, but they never gave us anything with the Justice Society, the JSA, why we should care about them, who they are, for fans who don't know anything about them. I don't think they learned anything more through this movie. And a lot of this film just felt really dated to me, dated to earlier superhero films, kind of like a snake eating its own tail. It feels like it's copying things that have already run their course in these superhero movie franchises, and they don't really bring a lot of the great acting talent that we see elsewhere to kind of make up for it. The villain was weak, whether the villain is Black Adam or Sabbac. The villain is kind of weak. And I'm not sure where we're going with this, because it's a huge tonal shift. This is the opposite side of the coin of Shazam. They share similar powers. They get them from the same person. They are one and the same, basically. But this one is very dark and brooding, where the Shazam, which is playing the trailers for the new movie right at the beginning of this, is super light and it's comedic. And the universe still feels really messy to me when we try and think about these things. A lot of my excitement and anticipation and expectations for superhero films has kind of been dampened over recent years. And so, I probably sound really negative with this film. It's fun action, but the further I got away from it, the less I enjoyed it. The more I tossed it around in my head, the less I actually felt like I enjoyed it. And this movie and this character, I felt, are kind of the definition of a shoulder shrug. It was okay. I think if this movie would have come out 10 or 15 years ago, I think it would have been a lot more impactful. Or if it had led off the DC universe and spun off from it, I thought that might have been more impactful. Unfortunately, we've gotten a lot of what this movie's, the themes and the ideas that this movie is presenting. We've gotten a lot of it in recent incarnations with Doctor Strange, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the Black Panther. I think we've seen a lot of the same illustrations of characters that were shown in this movie. And I'm just kind of exhausted by a lot of what the DC universe is doing. We have the Flash movie coming up soon, which it's going to be tough to build excitement for, especially when you know the mess that is Ezra Miller and what they're going to do with that. And they also have a Wonder Woman 3 movie coming, which it's hard to get excited for after the travesty that was Wonder Woman 84. And so I just want better writing for these movies to make me really care, especially when you have all-powerful people like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Better writing would have really helped with this. Let him get some of that charisma out on screen. There's a stinger scene at the end of this, which got the crowd cheering like I haven't heard in quite a while. That was actually really fun. The crowd was amped for what we saw after the credits. So I'm guardedly, tepidly optimistic about where we're going. I know this is the big movie at the box office right now. I feel that's more because of Dwayne opening a movie than anything else. But I end up giving Black Adam 2.5 out of 5 stars. I mean, that's the definition of a shrug. It's okay. It's going to get swept off the charts when Wakanda Forever comes out in a couple weeks. So enjoy it while you can. Also over in the movie theaters this week on the marquee, I have the newest rom-com for you. This is a film called Ticket to Paradise from director Ol Parker. This stars Julia Roberts and George Clooney. Oh boy, they are Georgia and David. This is your classic rom-com, the kind of film they just don't make much of anymore these days. This is not the Eddie Money biopic that some have been hoping for. But David and Georgia are a divorced couple who we established very early on have a very contentious relationship. They can't stand each other. Their divorce is very acrimonious. They're blaming each other for everything. But they are thrown together again as they go to see their daughter Lily graduate college. Lily's played by Caitlin Dever. But just as they think that her college graduation is the final time that they have to tolerate each other's presence, they find out that Lily has fallen in love while on her summer trip to Bali and has decided to marry a local man she met there named Gide. Gide is played by Maxime Boutier. Neither parent really agrees with this. Dad wants her to take her new law degree and work at a big law firm, and Mom wants her to not make the same mistake that she did by rushing into marriage. And so now these two adversaries, this divorced couple, must form a truce in order to sabotage this nuptial. And the remainder of this film is exactly as you'd expect. These two parents go from bickering incessantly to plotting and scheming. And soon the walls begin to come down, and as they use different tactics to break up this relationship and subvert this wedding, they learn to maybe set aside their differences for a while. Of course, Julia Roberts, she's famous for her hatred of weddings. It's well documented how much she doesn't like weddings, both in real life and in most of her movies in the late 90s. But will they destroy their daughter's dream for their own selfish reasons? Will love spring elsewhere on this island? One of the interesting things I liked about this movie was the Julia Roberts character of Georgia also has a younger man who is a love interest to her. He's a pilot who loves to surprise her to pretty good comedic effect, I thought. And I appreciated that she was the one who had the younger love interest as opposed to George Clooney. Shows we've progressed a little bit over the years. And there's a few moments in here where they really let them act. There's one scene in particular where George Clooney is sitting in a bar and he's talking to the character of Ren, played by Billy Lord, and he's kind of bearing his soul to her. And as a character, I thought it was a really wonderful performance right there in your really basic rom-com. Also interesting, I thought, was to give a lot of the emotional weight to this film where it was to a relative newcomer in Maxime Boutier, the fiancé, Gide. I thought he did a great job with this. I've never seen him before, and he carried most of the emotional weight of this film like that. The chemistry really is where this film will live or die, though. And of course, it's Julia Roberts and it's George Clooney, and it's just beautiful people in a beautiful location having a lot of fun, cracking each other up. The story is fairly basic, but it's really enjoyable. Every character in this film worked. The in-laws, the islanders, the friends, all of them really worked. I was laughing out loud at several moments in this movie. I was excited for this film, really. I mean, I'm a sucker for these rom-coms. I enjoy them. And so from the first time I saw the trailer, I was really excited. And it's two wonderful movie stars just having fun. And it delivered on everything that it promised, I thought. More or less. I wish we got more movies like this these days, of this quality. I love movies like this, or While You Were Sleeping, or One Fine Day, another George Clooney classic. You know what you're getting with those movies. And one of the things I love about this movie too is George Clooney's character is an architect, which I felt like was a great nod to the rom-coms of the 80s and 90s, where it felt like every successful man was an architect or in advertising. And Julia Roberts' character was, she's got an art exhibit that's massive, this huge warehouse art exhibit that she's got. And we get one of the great things that we don't get anymore, but was a staple of movies when I was growing up, is we get a great blooper reel during the credits, which I am always a sucker for. I love blooper reels, and it's really just some fun watching these two crack each other up. Obviously, friends who have a long history of working together, cracking each other up on set and just showing off their charisma and all that fun, and the chemistry between them. I enjoyed that a lot again, quite a lot. Like I said, it's a formula that works. I enjoy this formula, and I'm not a big Julia Roberts fan. If you know me, you know I'm not a big Julia Roberts fan. I've cracked wise about her for years and years and years, and I appreciated they used kind of a variation of one of my jokes about her in this movie. But it's hard not to enjoy her in this movie. It's really hard. And George Clooney just ages like a fine wine. Like I'm watching this movie, and I'm just thinking to myself, George Clooney needs like his Humphrey Bogart role. One of these, he needs his African Queen at some point in his career because he's so much fun. He's great on screen, and neither one of these actors really do a lot of work these days. It's really kind of hit or miss. One of the last things I saw them together, they were in a movie called Money Monster a few years back that was okay. But I wish they would do more acting, where Julia Roberts doing a lot more television these days than movies. But I enjoy Ticket to Paradise, good rom-com, bring the family, bring the friends. It's a good time. I give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's playing in theaters right now, so go check it out. Also in theaters, I have a third movie on the marquee this week. I know, I can't believe it, but I got to go sit in a Dream Lounger thrice this week. This one, a very different film from the previous two. It's a film called My Policeman from director Michael Grandage. Stars a bunch of people. Now it's going to be a little hairy trying to explain this movie, but it's a story that is set in 2 timelines, bouncing back and forth between the timelines, but from the mid-1950s to a time maybe 35 years later, I'm guessing. And it starts with an older woman named Marion, who is played, the older version is played by Gina McKee. Now we have 3 characters in here, and each of them is played in a younger version and the older, more modern day version of them. So it opens with the older version of Marion caring for an infirmed man who we're not quite sure who he is. He just suffered a stroke and is living in her front room as he recovers. Her husband, Tom, who's played by Linus Roach, is visibly upset by this man being in their house, but there's no real explanation why. And you kind of have to parse it out as we go along, and that's part of the fun of this movie. But half of it is Marion reminiscing about her youth in the 1950s Britain. Young Marion, played by Emma Corrin, has fallen hard for a young, dashing policeman named Tom, of course. The younger version of Tom, played by Harry Styles. She is a young school teacher, and he, of course, is the young policeman. And we watch as they court each other very respectfully, very much of the time of 1950s Britain. And they also fall in with they meet up with a young art museum director, Patrick. The young Patrick is played by David Dawson. He shows them more of a posh world, more of the high society, taking them to high society events, art museums, and recitals. And soon the 3 of them become this tight unit. And Marion appreciates the shared love for art and sophistication that Patrick has with her. And but she's madly in love with the blue-collar policeman, Tom. And so at first, it seems as though this is going to be a love triangle between Marion and these 2 guys. One who offers her things that she really enjoys, one who she's in love with. But the love triangle isn't where you think. We see Marion, again in the present day, reading the journals or the diaries of this man, Patrick. And they tell of the double life that he lived. And he writes about the torrid romance that he and Tom had as youth. How it started out as very confusing for Tom, as he didn't think this is something that he wanted. He was in love with Marion, and Patrick offered something different. He offered this passion, this something that was forbidden at the time. And this was a time, 1950s, Britain. This is a time when police would come and arrest you for being a homosexual, for being a sexual deviant, as they would say. And so you had to be very, very closeted. And the story maneuvers between timelines and between personal issues, and between small moments in each of their lives. And we see how hard this love triangle really is for everyone. How hard it is for Tom as he feels the obligation to marry Marion and have the life that's expected for him. How he has to get married to move up in the ranks of the police department, and how hard it is for him denying who he is, and not wanting to hurt her, so he can't really tell her, the woman that he loves, who he really is. How hard this is for Patrick, as he lives a lifestyle that can get him killed, and he has to repress his love publicly. He has to be somebody totally different in public. And of course for Marion, as she begins in life to suspect the lies that are being told to her, and the pain that brings to her, and how that pain can resonate all these years later. 35 years later, that pain still resonates. And the movie has a theme about how forgiveness is the only way really to find freedom, and how hard it is to find that forgiveness, to grant that forgiveness, even if it's not asked for, but to find that, and how holding on to pain kind of just holds you in a prison. And it's a beautiful, really heartbreaking story, beautifully told, really well made, great performances from the young cast, from the older version of Marion. Now, the older version of Tom and Patrick, we don't really get a lot out of, but specifically the young cast of Emma Corrin, Harry Styles, and David Dawson, really tremendous, really well made. And the title is deceiving, My Policeman, and a little bit sad once you think about it, look back on it. It's a little heartbreaking. It's dark and dour, and there's some rough moments, and it's definitely not one you want to bring the kids to. But if you're down for this, it's a really well done movie. I'm giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you want a love story that's a little more depressing than Ticket to Paradise, this might be one for you. And it's also playing in theaters right now, and I also believe will be streaming in a couple of weeks. So keep your eyes out for that if you want to watch it there. Speaking of streaming, I have one streaming spotlight for you this week, and I turn to Netflix for the new movie called The Stranger from director Thomas M. Wright. Stars Sean Harris and Joel Edgerton. This is an Australian movie, and I love some Australian crime dramas. This is a true story of one of Australia's largest undercover operations to catch a criminal. Authorities are searching for a man who they believe abducted a child. A child is missing, and they're out to find him. And they establish this huge sting operation to help them. Mark, again played by Joel Edgerton, is a detective who is deep undercover with a criminal underground that his department seems to have created just for this. They create this whole criminal underground. They set up a power structure, and then they send Mark out, and he befriends a man named Henry. This is Sean Harris's character, who they assume is the top suspect. He's the guy that they are zeroing in on as being the guy who may have abducted this child. Henry is a former criminal, maybe reformed, we think at the beginning of the movie, who says over and over, his motto is, I don't do violence. As he gets brought in with the promise of, hey, we got a job for you to do in this criminal organization, we bring you in, we can take care of you, get you back into the criminal life, basically. The police are attempting to lure him in, basically, further into a criminal underground, with Mark as his liaison into this, hoping that he will feel comfortable enough that he reveals something that they can use against him in order to find this young child. And this is obviously illegal. This is basically entrapment. It's illegal here in the States, but in Australia, it's perfectly acceptable to kind of lure a confession, lure a criminal into doing something to gain a confession. So that's something you have to realize going in. You go, this isn't right. This can't work. Australia's a whole different country, man. It's a country based on criminals. But Mark is the one who begins losing his soul as he befriends this man who is a vicious criminal. He really begins to lose track of himself, lose track of his soul as he really gets into this underground and really starts to befriend this guy who he knows is probably a heinous person. And so the movie is kind of the journey of Mark as he goes through this, and it propels the story as he tries to earn the trust of a suspected child killer and how deeply he has to go, how much he has to morph in order to kind of emulate this guy, this horrible man, in hopes that they'll find something that pays off in the end. And it's a quiet, really atmospheric film. The movie is often really dark. It required subtitles for me to understand everything that was being said. There's not like big action moments going on here. It gave me some flashbacks throughout the movie to a couple of films that I love from the past. Gave me some flashbacks to Zodiac in certain moments, also to Prisoners in others. Two phenomenal films. And it's a film that kind of sets the chess pieces at the beginning and then starts to turn the table on you as a viewer. Sean Harris is phenomenal. He plays such a quiet, unnerving performance. He speaks in this hushed tone, almost like a whisper, which forces you as a viewer to kind of lean in and kind of hang on every word, straining to kind of understand him. And that really leaves, it's really effective because you're really invested into what's this guy saying. And Joel Edgerton, I felt like, is really echoing that performance masterfully in this movie. He has that everyman quality that he brings to everything. He commits to his performance, and he's always believable. And these two work really well together as basically the two leads of this film, almost going back and forth with quiet, kind of mumbly performances. Couple guys with long hair and beards mumbling to each other. And it's a nice dynamic. I enjoy it. It's kind of unnerving. And Sean Harris has there's a great scene in here. I don't know, comes out of nowhere and is unexplained. This enchanting scene where he puts on some music and he does this strange like snake dance for Mark. It's super weird. The score in this film is great. It's really haunting, really effective without giving anything away. Like a score can sometimes foreshadow too heavily where we're going. This one didn't. It really helped build this psychological thrill. Despite what some might feel, I think some might feel that this is a very methodically paced movie, and it is. It takes its time. It is slow and quiet and dark in oftentimes. There's also this weird like fluttering noise, and there's a high-pitched noise that is played throughout the film that really it got to me. Gave me some issues. Didn't love that part, but it's a good, dark, kind of depressing movie, right in my wheelhouse, though. A type of film that I absolutely enjoy. So, The Stranger, I give 4 out of 5 stars. It's over on Netflix. Highly recommend it. Take the time, take 2 hours, watch this film. Turn the subtitles on, though, for sure. Speaking of movies coming out, let's take a look ahead at what is coming out. I'm looking at the weekend of November 4th. Can't believe it, already into November. We have 2 big movies coming out that weekend. The first one in theaters is a film called Armageddon Time, which is James Gray's semi-autobiographical family drama about a family coming together to support each other and the teen who is facing prejudice in the private school that he's forced into. This movie stars Anne Hathaway, Banks Rapida, Jeremy Strong, Anthony Hopkins, and Jessica Chastain as Marianne Trump. Sounds interesting. Over on Netflix, we have a film called Enola Homes 2, which is a sequel to the, I thought really enjoyable film. Came out a few years ago starring Millie Bobby Brown as the niece of Sherlock Holmes, Enola Holmes. She goes on adventures of her own. I really enjoyed the first one. I'm really looking forward to this one. So those are the films coming out November 4th. We want to thank our sponsor, though, Marcus Theaters, the Palace here in Sun Prairie. Thank you for sponsoring this program. We do appreciate it. We love some Dream Loungers, especially when I'm going to 3 movies in a short amount of time. Nothing better than a Dream Lounger to enjoy that in. Next week, I got a whole host of films. We're not going to cover all of them, but I have films like Pray for the Devil, Tar, Till, Call Jane, The Good Nurse, Wendell and Wild, All Quiet on the Western Front. It's a ton of movies coming out in 1 week. I don't know what to do, but hopefully I have someone sitting here with me to help me parse all that out. So that's going to be a fun time. Also, if you're watching this right now live, Saturday, October 29th, I want you to join in on our Trivia Palooza. If you're a viewer, you can play along. Go to sunprairiemediacenter.com/trivia. You can register, you can win prizes, you can have fun, and you can go on there and find out all the ways to play. But we're doing a 10-hour trivia contest. You don't have to play all 10 hours. You can play 1 hour at a time. But I hope you do join us. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I would love if some of my viewers would win some prizes. That would be great. So make sure to do that. And until next week, when I'm talking about a bunch of movies with someone, I'm Jamison. Hope you have a great week.